Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Well, if I keep looking down here, it's because I've got two dogs at my feet that are like kids that require a lot of attention, and Amelia's not here. So
doing double duty. I always laugh when I see you doing this, which is so awesome for me.
Yeah, I've chosen not to have kids yet. Anyway, I've chosen that specifically.
You're still a young man. You got many moons ahead of you, my friend.
You know, these dogs often like kids. Anyway, in the words of Doug, that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is good impression.
You don't want to talk about your dogs being like kids?
No. And if you're listening, Amelia, apologies, but you know how it is. So we were doing a call with one of the guys in the inner circle today. His month-end review. That's, as you know, we like to do those with the guys. It's a special VIP service that those guys get, which is awesome because they always get so many great reflections as you go through that process. And a theme that came up today, it was one of the guys in particular. He said, well, you know, what do I do? Right? Because for years, I used to come home and I would try and solve everybody's problems. You know, whatever complaint my wife had, I'd solve it. I'd tell her the solution. Whatever was going on with my kids, I'd dive in, I'd solve it. I'd be the hero. Because all day, that's what he'd do in business, right? He was a top producer for 15 years within his firm. And everyone looked up to him. And quite rightly, he was great at what he did. But what he didn't realize then was that, you know, that version of him that served him so well in business wasn't the version that his wife or his kids wanted to get. Anyway, fast forward to today when he's aware of that and he's changing it. He was still facing a little bit of a struggle. Because like, well, where's the line, Tim? You know, where's the line between me actually stepping in when I feel like I should or I need to with my kids or with my wife versus me leading them, right? And I've had to bring that to the table because I think it's a really powerful, insightful conversation to have for the guys because I think it's a situation that they might find themselves in, especially the idea of, you know, wanting to take responsibility for the happiness of the home or the happiness of maybe even your staff or the people around you, right? And it's just not possible. It's a recipe for insanity. And the more you try and control what you can't control, the worse things get. And, you know, the more you train people how to act as well, right? So anyway, I wanted to bring it to the table and see what you think.
Yeah, well, what'd you say? I mean, I have my opinions, but I want to hear what you've obviously already talked to this guy. I know this guy is an amazing guy.
He is.
And I'm curious what advice you gave him, and I'm happy to let you know where you've messed up.
Well, it was, yeah. It was similar to what we just finished off with then. You know, with your kids, it's a bit different, right? Because depending on the age of your children, you may engage with them differently than how you're going to engage with other people, especially let's take his wife, for instance, right? Because depending on the emotional maturity and how old they are and developments and all the rest of it, there's certain things that they just may not be able to do for themselves. But even in that scenario, you can still provide an environment where you can ask them questions of themselves, right? As well as establishing clear boundaries. Whereas with your wife or with the woman in your life, right? We'd assume that because of the age, that there's certain ways and means of operating that she's aware of, right? She can take responsibility for certain things that kids can't. So to then come home and want to save her from the mood that she's in, for example, is just unhealthy because then obviously you come in trying to swoop in and she doesn't want you to solve the problem. Her mood is her mood, right? hers to own. That's her thing, let's call it. But for him, for other guys listening, sometimes as men, we can struggle to sit with the agitation or the discomfort that can you hear Wilma?
I can hear the dogs, yeah.
Yeah. This is what happens when Amelia's not here. So excuse me. At least she's going to start howling. Anyway, we can struggle to sit with the discomfort, right? And want to swoop in and solve. And that's what he said. He's like, I get the heaviness and the agitation and the anxiety in my chest and wanting to solve it. So his growth has been able to notice what's coming up for him and sit with it and be comfortable enough within his own self, really, to not have his identity as a husband tied into how she is, and instead be able to be separate to the whirlwind of her emotions. And yeah, maybe ask questions or maybe even leave her to it, right? But not feel the need to save. So that's kind of what the advice we were giving him. And, leading on from that was the whole thing of, look, if you're trying to control something that is outside of your control, you're going to be forever, driving yourself insane because, again, her mood or her emotions are her emotions to own and to go through. And there may be a learning lesson in her for going through them. Don't rob her of that opportunity. You just get to sit in the eye of the storm, if you will, as the calm center, maintaining boundaries of what's acceptable and unacceptable for you and your own self-worth, and doing it in a calm and loving way, whilst also leaving her to go through her process. Point being is, in my opinion, that's leadership versus doing what he would have done previously and swept in to try to save. Saving you might think it's an honorable thing, but really it's often the last thing people want. Whereas leadership, sitting there, can sometimes be a little bit more uncomfortable because the pain may stay for longer, but it's within that it's a lot more honorable.
Yeah, and I agree. But I'm going to add a couple things on here to this. One is, something that I've learned to do with the women in my life is say, hey, would you like me to listen or would you like me to help you solve this? Right. And I say it in a nice way, but I say, and I'll get back, 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, I'll get back. I just want you, just listen. Thank you. Cool. Mm-hmm. And then eventually once they've listened, they might ask for advice, right? Now they might want me. Why do I want to solve it is the question. Why does he want to solve it is the question.
Exactly.
We get significance from this as a man. We're now important because we can solve it. I'm significant. I'm smart. I'm all of these things that are validation for being a man. And this is external validation. And I'm speaking directly to this guy because I'm sure he'll listen to this, but I'm speaking to everybody and my former self. It's validation for ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We love to help people because it makes us feel good about ourselves and makes us feel significant in the world that we live.
And it's the opposite too. When he walks in through the door and his wife is having that particular emotional, in that particular emotional state, let's say, some guys will take that as a slur on how they're being as a provider. Oh, I'm not doing a good enough job. She should not be feeling that way. She should be happy. Look at what she's got around her. Look at, blah, blah, blah. She should. I've not done a good enough job as a provider, so I've got to swoop in and save that so that I can then reestablish the significance and so on, as you were saying.
Yeah, and so it becomes a control issue, right? Where us as men, we want to solve the problem and we want to have control because, again, it makes us feel significant, right? It makes us feel worthy of love, right? We are providing, right? This is just the same idea of providing a paycheck. It's a double-edged sword where men want to go out hunt for their families, but also don't want to feel like just a paycheck. You're doing it for significance, right? This, if you're making more money than, let's just say 120,000 or so, right? Most families can live off that. Now you're starting, get up there. Again, I had another phone call with a guy. He's like, stressing about selling his company. He got an offer for 20 million and he's like, maybe I should hold off. I think I'm about holding off. He had a lot of anxiety around it. Well, how much money do you need? How much money is enough? And why do you want it? Right. So what I would talk to this guy about, and Tim, you did an excellent job. I know you're paraphrasing the conversation. But I would also ask him, like, why are you searching for things external of yourself? Because once you are solid within yourself, then you can sit through the eye of the storm of the woman that's with you, her emotions, because you become like the lighthouse in the storm. And that's leadership, right? The lighthouse is the beacon in the storm. The waves come crashing against those rocks. The wind comes crashing in, and the lighthouse just stands. The lighthouse is there. The lighthouse is leading the way, right? And when people trust that the lighthouse is always going to be working, ships can start running again, right? If they don't know if they trust the lighthouse, the ships aren't going near that shore because, well, I can't see the rocks. Is the lighthouse going to be on? Is it going to be off? Is it still going to be there? Screw it. I'm not going to go near that area. But if I know that lighthouse is solid, right? Obviously, the man being the lighthouse in this analogy, now it's safe. Now it's safe to travel. And what I did, Tim, was I was a lighthouse that would turn my lights on when it was convenient for me, right? There were certain times I just throw my hands up in the air and go, well, screw it, right? She's doing things wrong. She's doing this wrong. It was her, right? It was her fault, not me, of course. Right? I had all the answers. And I didn't realize that it wasn't safe. When my wife told me one time, I don't feel safe, it devastated me. Like, what do you mean you don't feel safe? I've never hit you. I've never pushed you, never even insinuated that I would do anything but protect you. Right. And we live in Santa Barbara, California, one of the wealthiest communities in the world. Like, you are nothing but safe. And she's like, no, I'm not emotionally safe. And that was a different experience. So when we look at this, to expand on it a little bit more, the human needs, the most common first order need that men go for is significance, right? Women's security. We talk about this a lot. Why is this important? When you go after significance, you're always going to be unhappy. You're setting up yourself. It's like comparison. You're setting yourself up for failure, right? So if significance is what you're searching for, significance in business, relationships, it's going to lead to disaster. Trust me, I've been down this road so many times. I can give you directions, right? It's ridiculous. But when you peel back and you start putting love, passion, other things, depending on which human needs spectrum you go through, the words are different, but essentially taking care of yourself as a priority, loving people, just love, genuine love for somebody, his wife, love for this woman going through this human experience, right? That's a different outcome completely.
Which, by the way, this guy took that approach.
Yep.
It was just because if he is listening, I want to acknowledge you because I know that's the approach that you took. But it's great as this guy was describing where he was and where he is now. And this is what you're describing here is the actual shift because, for a long time, he did create significance, right? And that's hence why he would swoop in and save. So he could be fun. Whereas now he's making the shift and it's beautiful to see, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I love the journey this guy's been on. But let's take it off the spotlight off him and take it back to the subject that you threw on the table about leading versus saving and kids, right? I have 2 kids, but I also have a lot of staff that, I've owned businesses most of my adult life, almost my entire adult life. I've owned companies. And so I've had staff that have been like kids. And I was a kid, essentially, now in retrospect, when I started my first companies. But the idea of it's easier, right, as a business leader, it's easier for us just to do the work a lot of times, right? Rather than actually teaching somebody to do that. That applies to your kids too. So if I go with my son and I just take over and just do something for him, maybe it's washing his hands, right? Or brushing his teeth. Simple. I'm just trying to think. My son's 3 years old, but it still applies. But if I actually stop there, spend time and say, here's how you brush your teeth. Let me show you. Now let me watch you do it. Now I'm leading him down the path, right? I'm not saving him. I'm showing him the way. Or I might even brush my teeth and let him watch. And just while he's watching me, he's going to take something in. And if I'm doing that as a leader from a place of love, but in a place of purely contribution, without an expectation, this is the key, without an expectation of an outcome, that's when people start following. When you have an expectation of an outcome especially with your loved ones, there's resistance, right? Because you start treating your wife like a child, like she's helpless, dude, it's not going to be good in bed. You're not going to be in bed, right? It just doesn't work that way. Just doesn't work that way.
Not at all. Not at all. And she just, a lot of women will grow to resent the fact as well, because, women, but the guys that come to us anyway, the powerful guys, no pun intended. And quite naturally, they attract very strong, independent, opinionated women that want to thrive, that can do it on their own. So when they feel like they have been suffocated and smothered, their light often diminishes, and it breeds resentment as well towards the guy. And the guys, thinking they're doing the right thing, obviously, but it's not what the woman wants.
Yeah, it's not what the woman wants at all. I mean, sometimes women want to be led. We talk about it all the time. You and I were talking about this, and I'm sure we'll expand upon it in another episode. But over the weekend, my wife got really excited. She coaches women, right? And she was thinking about a new program that she wanted to do for married women through the Powerful Man. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm super smart, about business. All right, let's sit down and, we'll whiteboard out a couple things, right? Let's write down 2 or 3 complaints that women have about their husbands. I already know them, right? Because I've been doing this for so long, but let's just go ahead and, write them down. So Tim, I've got a 9-foot whiteboard here in my office, 9 feet. So what's that, 3 meters roughly? It's somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know, but it's friggin' big. And it's got 2 sides, what have you. We filled the whole whiteboard. And it was crazy, right, to see these. But one of the reasons I bring it up is one of the things that women complain about the most with their husbands is that they feel trapped, right? They feel caged. Your woman does not want to feel that way, right? She does not want to feel like, she doesn't want to feel that that you think you're superior to her and that you can solve all of her things. The other thing she wrote down there, and this was in big letters, is all women want to be led. All women want to be led. Unfortunately, they also want to be led by a powerful man the right way. And most men, we've just never been taught that, right? So unless you've been through a program that teaches you it, it's just, friggin' we had 200 some guys in a Facebook group that we threw out there, like the Powerful Marriage Reset. And every one of those guys, we just gave them a couple of tools that we use within our more advanced trainings. And every guy was like, no one's ever taught me this. This is crazy. And it made so much sense. And then they go, some guys are like, this will never work. And then they applied it that day. And they're like, holy shit. I went from the couch to the bedroom, right? Literally the couch to the bedroom. And the wife was like, hey, I'm not tooting her own home, but the wife was like, look, this is the man I've been waiting for years to show up. It's just because we haven't been taught it. Yep. I don't have a whole whiteboard now that I'm going to be going through to make sure I'm doing all these. Like, wait a minute. Is she really just trying to tell me something? But yeah, it's a difference with leadership. There's lots of leadership styles, right? But leadership versus saving is a big thing. And I think most of us men, guys listening to this podcast in particular, because this is an elite group of guys that are out there bettering themselves. Most of us are good-hearted men that want to help others. We see somebody in need, we want to help, right? You see an older person struggling with a package, right? You want to walk over there. Hey, can I help you with that? Let me take your groceries for you or what have you. Just nice guys, right? Genuinely good-hearted people. I mean, nice guys in the best way. So we want to help people out. There's a difference. Like you can teach you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach him to fish and feed him for a lifetime. That's a big difference.
Big difference. Very counterintuitive, leading versus saving.
It is. And I know you and I, throughout the movement, various men that have come through and been involved in the movement, what have you, you and I have been caught up, and we talked about, we've been caught up in saving people. Let me save this guy. Let me help him out so much. Save him from himself. Save him from what he's doing. And I won't mention any situations because those guys, even though they might not be involved in the movement directly, a lot of them still listen to the podcast and they're still involved because it pays dividends in our lives.
Mhm.
And we love these guys, but we had to let them go so they could save themselves.
Mhm.
And sometimes you need to do that with your partner too.
Mhm. Well said.
Tim, I love this topic. I can keep talking about it over and over again, but let's wrap it up and give these guys just a couple things, one or two things that they could do right now in this space of insight.
Yeah. I think the first one is to notice how you're reacting, right? When you walk into a situation, be it with your staff, be it at home, and you're confronted by something that, you might not necessarily want to be confronted with, whether someone's in distress or whatever it is. Notice your reaction. What is your knee-jerk reaction? Do you want to go and rush to save them? And if you do, why? That's it. I think just start to question it. Why? What are you feeling in your body? Notice what's going on. Is it anxiety? Is it agitation? Is it fear? If it's fear, well, what are you scared of? What are you scared of? I think that's enough at this stage, just to start to notice it and catch yourself and start to understand where it's coming from and why. And then I think once you've done that, do something different. Lead. The hidden motives technique is a great way to do that. We've done podcasts on that in the past. There's a whole host of things you could do there, but I think for now, just start becoming aware, and then you can start to shift it.
Yeah, love it. Guys, as always, you're going to know what I'm going to say. Take massive action. You got it right here. Be the lighthouse. And don't be the lighthouse that I was 10 years ago that would turn the light off every once in a while, because it's not safe harbors, right? You check out, get pissed, you're not safe anymore. So be the lighthouse that's always there, shining bright, crashing through the storm, doesn't matter what's going on. My favorite term, engaged indifference. Be engaged, but be indifferent on the outcome. It's such an easy mantra for me just to remember, and it just works so well. So gentlemen, as always, if this is your first time with us, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus. That's thepowerfulman.com/bonus, where you can get a training right there and actually see how it works in your own personal life. And if you've been with us for a while, we'd love it if you leave a review. I know a lot of you have been doing that. We greatly appreciate it. It helps other men find us just like you. And we can move this movement forward even quicker. Gentlemen, have an amazing week. Remember, lead, don't save. See you next time on The Powerful Man Show.